So you felt that it was obviously wrong to force people to get the mRNA vaccine for COVID, right? Now, I would grant you, certainly in retrospect, that seems true,
I would grant you, certainly in retrospect, that seems true, is a very lofty, dumb man's way of using fancy words to say, I was wrong. We were wrong. The jab was actually not good for everybody. I would grant you, certainly in retrospect, having now pontificated on the aggregate data, that the efficacy of the pathogen neutralizer known as the vaccine. This is a dumb person who's trying to sound smart, obfuscating the fact that what he's saying right now is, yeah, we made a mistake. I'll grant you that we made a mistake, but now listen to my series of hypotheticals to think about how you'd be wrong if something that never happened and that never could happen were to happen.
but if we change a few of the
Just a
variables,
few.
I think your ethical intuitions and certainly political intuitions would totally change. So you make it a
This is a month old, this podcast.
much more obviously effective vaccine.
You make it a much more obviously effective vaccine, meaning when this came up in mandating the prior jab, it was obviously not effective. Obviously. I mean, it didn't stop transmission. Sorry, I'm screaming. Let's hear. This is the first of the hypotheticals. That would obviously change your intellectual intuition, political intuition.
That really does block transmissions. Like a
So if it worked, would it change your mind? Maybe. Probably not in terms of what we're talking about, but I would certainly think about things differently if it actually worked. What's your next hypothetical? Sam Harris, a genius?
sterilizing vaccine.
Sterilizing vaccine.
You make it a much more dangerous virus.
No, let's make it
You
a much
make it a virus that's actually preferentially killing kids rather than old people.
preferentially killing kids. Let's make this description as complicated as possible. You're making a much more lethal virus, a pathogen that's actually preferentially targeting children. How about it's more dangerous for kids? Well, I can't talk like that because then people would come by, people would discover that I'm stupid.
Right.
But stupid and immoral. But and the immoral is more important than the stupid.
So now we're in an environment where like you're deciding not to get vaccinated is putting my kids at risk, right? Do you get to make that choice, right? And you might say, "Oh yes, yeah, I should be able to make that choice. It's my body, but dial up the deadliness of the pathogen.
Dial up the deadliness of the pathogen. Make the virus more dangerous, more lethal. Dial up the dangerousness of the pathogen.
Give us something like,
Give us
airborne Ebola that incubates for a month. You don't know you have it, and you walk around spreading it, and it's
if you got the vaccine, and in your hypothetical, Sam, the vaccine actually works, you wouldn't need someone else to get the vaccine. And by the way, if the virus were that deadly and the vaccine that effective and that safe, you'll get to the part where it says not even one person had an adverse reaction. You wouldn't need to mandate it because people would be lining up to get it voluntarily. You don't need to mandate drinking water so that people don't not drink water to death. Oh my gosh.
it's got, a 75% fatality rate, and it's mostly killing kids. No one gets to make that choice anymore. I mean, then literally the cops come in and vaccinate you. And I would say that all of us would agree to that the moment, again, that you turn up the lethality
Make it more lethal.
on the pathogen.
On the
You turn
pathogen.
up the effectiveness of the vaccine.
Make the vaccine effective.
You turn down the risk of the vaccine. Give me a truly safe vaccine where there's not even one documented case of vaccine injury, right? So then you just have to be completely crazy to be worried about being vaccinated in that.
This is where we're going to stop because it's so stupid, it's beyond words. Make the virus more lethal, make the vaccine more effective, and make it impossibly safe. Hey, Sam, there is not one medical intervention on Earth that is, has been, or will ever be risk-free. And that is why the choice should be for the individual whom is being subjected to that medical intervention that is not, has not ever been, and never will be so safe that there will not ever be one Not one example of an adverse reaction. But in my hypothetical, in my thought experiment, everything is worse, everything is better, and it's totally safe. Of course you would be okay with the cops busting. Hey, you know what? It's never going to happen because it can never happen. It's the same reason why, in theory, you know the person committed the murder. It's the most heinous crime on earth. Incontrovertible evidence. Is not a tenable argument to say, I therefore support the death penalty. Because it's not the perfect crystal cases that justify a position. It's the reality of the world in which we live. The reality of one in which evidence is falsified. Evidence is planted. People lie. Government abuse of their power. And so you cannot rely on these hypothetical thought experiments of total inhuman perfection because it's inhuman in order to justify your position. So what you're saying, Sam, in an impossible reality, people might think that way. Unfortunately, we live in this reality, and you are unhinged and deranged. And I know people are going to say, Viva, you right now look unhinged and deranged. I'm righteously so. It's an impossible thing to look at someone, think they're talking smart, when they're actually being absolutely illogical, immoral, unethical, and outright stupid. I never knew of Sam Harris. I never knew of him before COVID. I think I remember having heard his name, but not knowing anything about him. I don't understand how he got there. I mean, I guess I've heard him say now some things which are not dumb. His meditate or mindfulness app, I think, might be useful. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And it's because people cannot let go of the fact that they made a mistake. Oh, yeah, okay, fine. So I might have made a mistake there. But if everything were different and brought to a standard of perfection that is impossible in the real world, then I would have been right. Congratulations, Sam. You're an idiot. Oh. Now, that being said, that's all I have to say for Sam Harris. He blocked me on Twitter when he was still on Twitter. I would love to have the discussion because I wouldn't let that shit slide. I'm not an asshole, but I would certainly make fun of him to his face. Maybe that makes me an asshole. I don't know. I don't know anymore. I like to think I would be brutally honest. In the same way with Jenna Ellis last week, I was asking the what I think are hard questions, but I'm not an asshole when I do it. But I'm like, I would just say, Sam, an amazing hypothetical. To which I would say, if it were that perfect, you wouldn't have to mandate anything. People would be lining up to get it. But then I would also say, Sam, your hypothetical is stupid because it's impossible. So don't give me an impossible as a baseline for your ethics because it's impossible. Therefore, we can't possibly implement that to determine ethics. If I could know with 1,000% certainty that someone committed a heinous crime, I would support the death penalty. The reason why I don't is because even though there will be cases like that, there will be cases where it is not the case. And therefore, you cannot violate one person's rights because you think you have a perfect system when you can implement it perfectly, when you can't because we're humans. But I don't think Sam is going to be appearing on a sidebar anytime soon, and I don't think he's going to be inviting me on anytime soon. Now, that's all for Sam Harris.